steadily it rises.
Hey, it's ODB. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. On this video, I'm going to explain how to install in great detail the Stinkin Lincoln LED taillights. There's a couple of benefits to these taillights. There is also a shorter version of this video for someone that doesn't want all of the detail. As you'd imagine, you look at the title or the thumbnail and you see the length of this video, and I went into a lot of detail in this video. So if you want, go ahead and jump over to the shorter version. And for some of you that are kind of more hands-on and work on your car all the time, it's probably going to be pretty easy for you. Now, I have since installed these. I'm kind of redoing this intro, and essentially all you have to do is get in on your 61 to 65 Lincoln Continental. There are quarter panels in the rear, right? And take off the tail light on each side. The Stinkin Lincoln LED tail light is going to slide in, and literally it's going to ride right here. You reinstall everything, and the wiring itself is super simple. You are going to basically follow the instructions, and it's very, very easy. Now, I wanted to go into some detail in this video to kind of reinforce a few things that you're going to see. There are chapter markers, and I'll talk a little bit about the instructions themselves, getting in. My car probably hasn't been taken apart in a long time. At first, I thought maybe the taillights had never been taken out. I think it's been a very, very long time. There is a way to do it without having to remove the bumper and things like that. I did loosen the trim. That is the body trim on the rear or on the quarter panel, rather. There's two main benefits to these lights, okay? And this is what I want you to know. If you want to add additional lighting, right, and make this brighter, this tail light, which is really kind of a safety overall item, these lights are going to be for you, okay? So when you press the brake pedal and those rear taillights light up, essentially they're going to be a lot brighter. You're going to have your existing bulb, and you're going to have this LED halo, if you will, that's riding down here, light up as well, okay? So that's really the biggest benefit. But the secondary item is when you have your parking lights on, okay? Those parking lights are then going to illuminate, and I'll show the photo here. It's going to illuminate what I kind of refer to as this little halo here. So it's a nice little modification, if you will, that's very simple. The great news is you're not cutting any wires or anything like that. If you ever want to return to exactly the way the factory was, you simply would go back in, remove your panel if you need to on the interior, get to that taillight wiring, and you're just going to unplug and then plug it back in. It's that simple. So without further ado, this is the longer version. Hit up Stinkin Lincoln, John Lyman up in Pennsylvania. Here is his information. If you want to order a set of these, I'm so happy that I basically started this video in the past, and now I'm going to complete it for everybody to see the benefit of these awesome products that John offers. All right, let's jump in. Thanks for the support. All right, you can see here the lights are off in terms of the shop. Headlights are on, and you can see the running lights here. So basically, the thought process is if you're driving these cars, or let's say you even break down, I talked a little bit about the video where I did the unboxing, where I mentioned that you don't get the best lighting with these older cars. Now, I do have, recently I updated the tag light, so there's a working tag light now. But basically you have the tag light and you have the two tail lights, and obviously it's an older car. 60 years ago, lighting has improved a ton over the course of time. Not only are you going to get a little bit better lighting, but you're also going to kind of get this halo effect a little bit to a certain extent here on the bottom. So with that being said, this is the before. Let's do the install and take a look at the after. All right, I'm going to show you the brief instructions here. It talks about, just to be clear, these are technically LED taillights. And what John reinforces here is the kit is plug and play unit that will act as your tail/rear parking lights when installed correctly. He talks about you can, if you so choose, switch to a 1157 style LED bulb, but make sure you use a red LED bulb, not white. We're going to dive right in, and I'll kind of walk you through this process, but we're going to open the trunk. We're going to unplug the factory taillight. We're going to remove the speed nuts. Step 4, we're going to carefully remove the taillight from the quarter panel. He does mention sometimes it's difficult due to the body trim over the top of the chrome bezel at the bottom outer corner. Step 5, once the taillight's removed, take it apart on a table, on a towel, if you will. Remove the black rubber seal gasket over the threaded nuts. Remove 3 more speed nuts, and you can see kind of the rest there. And again, I'll walk you through this step by step. He does mention wearing rubber gloves and being as clean as you can once you kind of get in there. You'll see it's very simple, but basically using a 12-volt source like a jumper box or your car battery, test the lights before installing. Red is positive and black is ground. So we'll do that now just to make sure that they are working. All right, so no matter what your expertise is, this is a super simple thing that you can do. You can see I have the LED taillight right here. All I've done is taken the negative lead and I've sat that right there on the battery post. I'm going to take the red positive, of course, and go to the positive side. And you're going to see there. Now, what I've had to do is I typically have my battery disconnected. I, of course, connected the battery a moment ago. You saw that. I have to turn the key on. For those that don't know, if you have a convertible, the key has to be on unless you've changed anything. But for the most part, it has to be on the on position. And then I'm going to hit the convertible switch. And of course, if you have a sedan, you'll just pop the trunk, business as usual. I'm just going to pick this up just to kind of get a little bit more space in here. Going to turn off the key. And basically where we're going to be working in here is obviously, as you can imagine, the taillight right there. We got to get in behind there and on this side as well. And what's going to happen is, depending on your setup and how complete the car is, you will have to remove, like in this case, this car was pretty original. I'm going to have to get in behind this. So I'm going to take extra care not to just get in here and manhandle all this and rip it out. You can see it's, again, not in the best condition, but I do want to keep it nice. So what I'm going to do is begin to take this piece out so I can get to the taillight, which is right there. So some of this will be kind of self-explanatory, but basically what I want to do, just so you guys can follow along, I'm going to take out these few screws. There's number 3, there's number 4. There is one up here, but you can see that that is actually sliced. I think there's technically 5. But what we're going to do is we're going to get this out of the way, again, so we can get behind here. Now, I tried to film taking out those few screws, and obviously it's not easy leaning over with the drill. But basically, once I took those few out, of course, I've got a photo and video on how that goes back in. Obviously, it's not hard. I took care to pop these little flaps at the bottom up so they're above where the carpet's at, so I don't go ripping anything, hopefully. And then what I'm going to do, and again, this thing is not in the best condition, but as you know, as I've talked about sometimes, these cars are getting harder and harder to find things. And you can see there's actually, let's see over here if there's one more. Yeah, there's one more, so we do need to take that one right there. But these cars are getting harder and harder to find complete. And even something like this, you could either use it as a template if you have someone making your interior pieces, or if you like the originality like I do, you want to try to keep it intact. You don't want to manhandle it unless you really don't care. Then, of course, you're just going to toss it, which I don't recommend. Now, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up unplugging this. I'm going to do it off camera because these can be a little bit of a pain if you've never experienced to pull those apart. This one's probably never been undone. Heck, I don't even know if that little cover's ever been off. What we're going to do from there is, again, we're going to unplug this. Then we're going to take up here in this, up there, you can see there's 1, 2, 3. We've got to take those nuts off. And that's going to allow for us to get and take the taillight out and complete the job here very shortly. Now, it doesn't call for this, but I can actually finally use my 90-degree drill. This thing doesn't have a lot of power. If it did, I wouldn't recommend using it on something like this. But basically what I can do is save a little bit of time. And then of course here, it's not going to work until I get an extension. And then up here, I probably won't work anyways. I'll probably have to use a socket anyway. So why did I get this out? I don't know. All right, depending on what your tool set is, you might have more extensions or different wobbles or things like that. What I ended up finding here was I took 2 of my longer extensions and I've got the deep socket on there, and that's allowing for me, I can't do it while I'm filming, but I'm able to get right here, hold it straight on the speed nut, and I'll be able to loosen it. That's about the easiest way I found to get this one off. Okay, so those are off, and for anybody that had a keen eye, you may have recognized when I said that this may have never even been off. Well, I know that it has because someone put the wrong hardware. Typical stuff that happens over the course of time. These are the speed nuts. Things are very, you don't need to put a lot of force on them. A lot of times you can, after you get the first turn, you can put your socket on there with your hand and just twist these off. I mean, these are loosely on there typically. So you have these 2, there should be 3. And then of course mine had a washer and a nut. So that should not be there. Now, John points out in the instructions, which I'll show you here, and this did come into play here. Basically, you've got note 1. Sometimes it's difficult to remove the tail light easily due to the body trim being over the top of the chrome bezel at the bottom outer corner. What does that mean? Well, basically, if you look here at the tail light is loose now, and hypothetically, it should just pull out. However, if you look here where this body trim piece is, these were stainless steel up until 66. Basically, you know, some of these cars have been taken apart, some haven't. Hypothetically, what I need to do is I need to get in here and remove or loosen this screw and that screw right there. It's kind of hard to see with the reflections, but basically, you know, each car is going to be a little bit different in terms of the quality of it. This car is not in perfect condition. I'm kind of keeping it this way, but at the same time, I do not want to manhandle this. I can try to see if it's going to come out here, but again, my thing is I don't want to damage anything. So take your time. And John does mention that you may have to, depending on if this was pushed in some, you may not be able to get to these. This one's a little bit easier. That one down there, which again is hard to see, it's right there. It's going to be a little bit tougher to get to, especially if we're trying to get straight on to loosen it. So I'll see what I can do. All right, sometimes simple jobs can be a little bit more frustrating, but you got to keep plugging ahead. What I did is I took this screw out. It's a little bit longer of a screw. And as John mentions in the instructions, depending on if this thing's ever been off or it could have been 50 plus years, what I'm kind of doing is just working at it some, pushing a little bit. You can see with some of the undercoating and things like that, it's been on there a long time. And what I'm doing is I'm just lightly working it to try to get it loose. And, you know, I'll kind of push on these studs a little bit and you'll see it's moving a little bit there. And I'm just going to work it, be careful. And I'm going to try to pull it as I pull it out. I'm going to try to pull it up to avoid damaging this right here, this stainless trim. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, what I'm doing is as I put my fingers in here on these different studs, the studs, they kind of get caught on the metal as they try to kind of go out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just continuing to wiggle this just a little bit and basically just unstick this taillight that's been in here for a long, long time. And like I said, some of these projects that are supposed to be simple can turn into a little bit of a headache. So what I've always done is just try to take your time with it. You're not in a rush, and you can always come back to it if you're having an issue, come back to it the next day. So what I'm doing is I'm wiggling this. I'm kind of keeping an eye on everything in here. Now, while I'm doing this, I will mention I did try to unplug the plug that I mentioned a little bit ago in here. And that thing is probably never maybe been undone. And it's a pain. So you got to, again, be easy with some of this stuff because like I said, it's been on here a long time. Now I'm pretty confident with what's happening here. I was only able to get this top screw out. So I'm pretty confident it's kind of getting caught a little bit on this stainless trim, but certainly it's definitely stuck in here too a little bit. Starting to get it to the point where I think it'll come out here hopefully soon. And as you keep wiggling it, eventually you're going to find, hopefully it will come out. Now, if you've never taken one of these out, it could be, like I said, a little bit of a pain. And there we have it. So you can kind of, I want to show you guys the back. And you basically have, you know, some of this weather stripping and kind of rubber, if you will, that's just been on here for almost 60 years. So you got to just take very care and taking this off. You can see this trim piece right here. It's not attached in any way the way it's cut, but it does butt up against the body here. So that tail light kind of slides in behind this. And that's the way it came from the factory. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next step finally. So I'm going to show you this. Take as much care as possible taking this off. You don't want to rip this if you can. This is going to come off. This is going to be a little bit of a beast to get off because you're going to have those studs right there. This is like kind of a brittle plastic piece. 1, 2, 3 up here. So I took a lot of care just to finagle this to come off. And then of course, don't drop your lens. Now we can start to clean this. Look back at John's instructions. The light itself is just going to sit right in here. But as I'll show you, you can see, as you'd imagine, that's real dirty in there. So I'm going to take care to clean this up. Why not? And more than likely, this may have been loosened at some point. These two screws were not put back in properly. So who knows what happened over the course of time. But I do believe, and I do know that this car was resprayed probably in the 70s or early 80s. It has overspray on different things. You could take the time if you wanted to clean this up as much as you want and reinstall it back on. So I'm going to keep on pushing on. All right, so the fun stuff, what I did is I took the light assembly, basically kind of peeled each layer apart. I took this into my kitchen sink and I cleaned the lens and I basically dried it. Now, essentially, the light itself literally just sits nicely right in there and it goes right up to the back. And that's all you do. And then we'll basically hook it up now. And I did want to show you, got a little bit of a mess going on here. This is the inside lens, and I did the same thing. This just had dirt from 50, 60 years. So I went ahead and cleaned it and dried it as well. So that's going to go back together. Let's get this side done. Now, putting this guy back together, basically, there was a little bit of adhesive. And of course, as you'd imagine, over 60 years, this thing was pretty much adhered to the back. Now, it's not now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this slightly and show you that indentation right there. That is where that lens is going to sit as we start to put this back together. Now, I did also wipe out the inside of this. I'm not going to take, with this car, you know, kind of being the patina Lincoln that it is. I like that rattiness, if you will. Shout out to the ratties. I'm not going to go and clean all of that. I would do it probably on my 65. I know I would. But basically, I just wanted to get this clean on the inside. I wiped it out. There wasn't a lot of dirt in there, and I want to go ahead and put this back together. I am going to take care not to get finger prints all on this lens, so I'll wipe it down as I'm starting to kind of put it back together. All right, I didn't have the camera on the tripod, but basically what you do is this just all goes back together the same way. I found putting it together from top to bottom like this, where I kind of sandwich everything back together, was the easiest. I tried it a couple different ways. And then on the back, it's going to be hard to show you, but the last piece that goes on is the gasket, if you will, that you can see right here. So once everything's sandwiched back together, it's going to essentially go back in the same spot. You're going to have to finagle it back in. I'll do my best when I do this side. I'll try to have the tripod set up, but that's one good thing about doing one side at a time. If you don't do this kind of stuff all the time, you might get confused. You can always refer back to this side Worst case scenario, this side could come apart if you were struggling to put this back together. But I'll tell you, it's pretty simple overall. And just take video and photos while you're taking it apart if you need to. So it's getting ready to go back in, and I'll show you the wiring. All right, so I'm solo tonight. Don't really have any helping hands, but basically what I'm going to do is this bottom piece, I don't think I showed you, but when it comes out, this triangle goes inside that bumper end. So basically, I'm going to do my best to hold this together, put that weather strip piece, if you will, back in there. I've got the 2 wires through the body. I'm pressing on, trying to kind of keep everything together. And I know one of the challenges that I'm going to have is trying to reinstall it the same way I took it out. So like John said, with this strip here, I was kind of curious to see how big of a pain in the butt it's going to be. And we're about to find out, reinstalling it. All right, I had turned the camera off for a second and I meant to turn it back on, but basically you're going to get those 3 studs lined up, and my light just died in here, but you're going to kind of watch them as they come back in. And at first it didn't seem like it was going to want to go back in the same way it came out. But what I've been doing is just literally, I had to take a flathead, and I was really careful to just bend out the stainless trim just a little bit to get this to go behind it. Again, remember I took out this screw down here to give it a little bit of wiggle room. But what I've been basically doing is just lightly kind of pulling back on it, and it's about where it needs to be. In addition, keep in mind this taillight itself, it's going to tighten down whenever I put the speed nuts back on it. But what you can do is you can also adjust it as you're putting this back in, so you're going to feel it's got a little bit of wiggle room as it's coming back in here. Now, once I get everything tightened down, it should all be tight, and it's going to look just like it did before it came out. Now, remember, with this gasket here too, I would take photos and try to line it up the very best you can as you get it to go back in, because again, you're going to want to have the orientation, the alignment, the best it can be. Now, with these older weather strips as well, these moldings, if you will, these things are old and brittle. So I kind of feel like I'm only going to be able to get this to a certain extent until I replace these. So I'm going to keep working at it, try to get it back to where I feel like it was originally. And then I'll mess with the wiring. All right, so the instructions might be confusing to you, so I'll show you if you're a visual person. Essentially what you do is you unplug this, and again, you're gonna have to get a firm grip more than likely on this side and this side of this to pull these apart. If you've ever done it, and these things have been together 50, 60 years, they can be a little bit of a beast. But I wiggle them a little bit and they'll eventually pull apart. You take the red lead from the new LED that's inside there, and that red lead goes into the car wire harness. This is the one coming from the car. This is the one coming from the factory light. And you plug the red bullet connector into the female side. So the male bullet connector goes into the female side of the harness for the car. You then take, and this is the way it's going to look, we're going to tape it up when we're finished. You take the other plug and you plug the one side. So the female side here goes into the male side of the car harness, which obviously is coming from up front. And that's all you do. Now you can see, I'm going to make sure, I'm going to probably clean or check with a little pick. I'm going to pull this back apart and I'm going to make sure it's clean in there, because you can just see the residue and stuff, and I want to make sure it's a good connection. But that's all you do. And then what John suggests is I'm going to take some electrical tape. I'm going to tape this up. You'll never see this. It's going to be hidden back here. And if you want to do an LED bulb here, he suggests, I think he suggests going with a red bulb. So you could do that. Now, I want to double check my taillight bulbs because I made a mistake when I started. I only showed you guys the running lights, and I don't have another person here, but I want to make sure my taillights have actually, in fact, been working. Now, I did turn the lights on a moment ago, and I'll show you. I'm going to pull that, and this is where you get the new effect right there. So that's basically your new running light. Now, you can decide. I know there's going to be some people that are going to say they like this more. It lights up, you know, a little bit differently. To each their own. To me, you know, yeah, it looks good. All of the Lincolns are going to look like this if you've got a working bulb. But at the end of the day, and I'm not going to show you right this moment, but in the dark, this is a lot brighter. And it's still lighting up inside here. So to me, it's kind of a win-win. It's not too hard of a project, but I'm going to keep on keeping on and see how much I can get done, if I'm going to finish tomorrow or I'm going to finish it up tonight. All right, so I determined that tail light wasn't even working, and I'm glad I'm doing this because I realized that if not, someone hopefully would have told me the next time I was driving it. I just ordered 2 LEDs. I'll show those tomorrow or later in this video. They're red LEDs, 1157s, and that should fix that problem. What I did was, just to double check, it took me 2 seconds to plug in that side the way it was. I hit the brakes, this side lit up that I'm on, the driver's side did not. So should have checked that. That's probably one thing you want to double check. That way, if yours is working, you know right away when you plug it in the way that I showed you, it'll work. If it doesn't, then you know something's, maybe your ground isn't solid. I did forget to mention that. Speaking of ground, right there, you can ground it on either side, but basically the LED that's in there, it's going to get grounded on one of those 2 studs. So you can see that. What I'll do tomorrow is I'll put the LED in here, pop that back on, and then I'll reinstall the curtain, if you will. Now on this side, if you have a convertible, it's going to be a little bit of a pain. I've never taken this off with everything in it other than like a parts car. But basically, you know, if you have the convertible, you've got all of your relays over here, your pump, your solenoids, and you've got the 2, if I can show it right there, you've got your 2 studs, and then you're going to have one that's going to be up in here, right? So it's going to be a little bit of a beast to get your arm up underneath here. Hopefully it's not too tight, being that it's just a speed nut, and hopefully I can get that side off and this side will hopefully go smooth. All right, a key to having different screwdrivers. I don't have the most tools. I've tried to, over the years, add to the arsenal, buying different things, but I just thought to myself, if I could find a thinner screwdriver, and I did, I was able to get to this screw here. So this is going to definitely aid, because the bigger screwdriver, I was not able to get in there like I had hoped. What that means is, hopefully now, with some wiggle room here, you're seeing where that's starting to come. That was the key, because I could kind of tell this thing was getting to the point where it wanted to come out, but something was holding it up. So again, don't get stressed out over this stuff. A lot of these shops, they don't mind working on these cars, taking their time. Some don't. Some guys are animals and they're going to rip it apart. You don't want to go to those guys. But what people are getting paid by the hour, which again, this is my personal car, they're going to take the time, if they're doing it right, to take things apart, because they're getting paid by the hour and they don't want to break things. It's that plain and simple. So take your time. Now remember that you got that triangle piece to here. And the other thing that I was trying to do is trying to avoid ripping this gasket. The bottom did rip, and it looks like it's probably been that way, or maybe it was never put back right. I'll make sure I put it back right. I mean, basically I'm going to put the studs through that area right there together. Again, if you're taking photos of this stuff, you're just going to want to take your time when you put everything back together. Now in hindsight, you would think that I would maybe know all this stuff off the top of my head, but it's kind of a learning experience. In hindsight, that side, I'm pretty certain, I'm going to go back and double check. I do not think it had, per John's instructions, the 3, 1, 2, 3 speed nuts. Okay. So that made that side going back together a little bit frustrating, because I had to hold everything together, then stick it in there and then tighten it down. Now, technically, the way it's back in there is it's going to be fine because it's speed tight down with the speed nuts on each of the studs. But basically what I wanted to show you is on this side, per the instructions, you do have a speed nut, or you should, on each of these. So that's going to help keep all of this together. And that was a little confusing to me on that side. So in hindsight, if I find those, which I do not think I took off, I would have remembered that. I'll, of course, take that side back apart, put those 3 on there. If not, the next time I do take it apart, I'll make sure I get some from Lincoln Land and I'll put those back on just so that they're there and it's complete. But also on that side, these 2 screws here were missing. Well, they were there, they were loose. And these, this little piece of rubber that's from the factory, it was not placed into those 2 holes. So of course what I did was I clocked it correctly and I tightened those 2 screws down. This one, of course, is there. So again, I can tell that this thing's been taken apart a couple times. So just want to reinforce again, there are those 3 that hold it, those speed nuts, and then there's these 3 as well that kind of sandwich this whole thing together. Let me get this apart, clean it up, get the LED installed, and get it back on the car. All right, I kind of did the same process that I did on the other side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this inside, put it in some soap and water, and clean it out. I wanted to show you how dirty it is. So you can check that out. Pretty dirty. But again, the way I look at it is, sure, you can just throw it back together. Why not clean this stuff up? I'll wipe this stuff down. I'll wipe the inside of this guy out, and I'll go ahead and get everything reinstalled. I will plug in the regular bulb on this side. I want to make sure the taillight does work. Although, again, I told you earlier, I did figure out that taillight wasn't working. The running light was. So the new LED bulbs will be here. The good thing is all this can go back together, and that can easily be plugged in tomorrow. Just as simple as changing your normal taillight. Of course, on these bulbs, if you did not know, you can look at the number. It's also in John's instructions, 1157. You could go on Amazon or wherever you buy LED bulbs. You could punch that code in. You can look for the different colors. I did order, as I said, 2 red ones, which John suggested. And I have a feeling that's going to really brighten up in addition to what we've already done. So let's keep on keeping on. And just so you know what I mean by speed nuts, and I know this is a longer version. There's going to be a shorter version as well. This is just maybe for someone that wants a longer version with more detailed steps. But those speed nuts right there, those were missing on the driver's side. And when those are here, you know, you can put this back together and hold it with one hand. And the other side, I had to kind of sandwich it together as it was going back. So not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. It just definitely makes it easier to have those. Okay, I also wanted to mention this. This is above and beyond. This is not a necessity. I had a friend that helped me. He taught me, basically did all the wiring in my shop, and he likes to use electrical tape even when, for instance, the Florida building code doesn't call for it, right? On certain things, just as an overkill. So what I'm going to do is this. The main thing you would just want to make sure, and again, I'm just reinforcing this, is you wouldn't want these wires to get pinched at all, especially the red wire, which is your power wire, because it would burn out. So again, not a big deal. You just want to make sure that when this guy's riding in where it sits and where these wires route, when you tighten down those speed nuts, you don't want for this to get pinched between the body. So just keep that in mind. All right, a couple things. I'm going to go and show you how this side goes back in. You see the wires? I have them routed directly in between those 2 studs, and you got the tape on there if that's what you decide you want to do for the extra security. I also don't forget to throw the gasket back on. As I stated on the driver's side, I went ahead and took it completely off. This one lines up nice. It's not as brittle as the other side. Now I'm going to show you this really quick too. This kind of triangle area is going to come in key because the way you're going to set the bump, or excuse me, the tail light in here, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get that flap to kind of come up underneath here, and then that way those studs will come down and line up with those 2 holes. We're going to make sure that we have this huge hole to stick these through, the 2 wires, and as we're reinstalling, we're just going to make sure that they don't get caught or snagged on anything. Going to go ahead and have this, this is probably the easiest way to put the tail light in. you're going to have it at this angle, and then you're going to want to get this flap in this triangle kind of area. It's going to kind of want to push down, and as it flaps down underneath that, you'll kind of feel it. Again, you want to make sure each time you're checking these wires to make sure they're not going to get pinched. Now, it is going to be tight, even though they're coming through with those two studs in the middle. It is going to be tight, but again, that's why I decided to go ahead and put some electrical tape on it. Now I've got those two lower studs lined up. The top one looks like it's pretty much lined up. I got this trim piece loosened, which this side is going together, to me, a lot easier than the driver's side. And I'm just going to kind of keep wiggling this, and that's how easy it went on. Boom. Now we're going to put the speed nuts on the inside, finish her up. Now on the inside, you can see again where those wires come in right here. Before I've tightened anything down, I've made sure that, you know, they look good. We're going to put the ground on either one of those studs. I'll probably do it on this side here, and then we'll go ahead and plug in just like we did on the driver's side, and we'll be done. Okay, and just to reiterate, same process as the other side. It's going to look just like this, and the lead from the LED is going to, that bullet connector is going to go into, so that male connector is going to go into the female connector from the car. And this guy over here, you're going to just have it where it basically twists out, and this is coming from the light female will go into the male from the car. Does that make sense? Again, same as the driver's side. Let's take a look now. Go ahead and try this and turn it on and see if anything good happens. And there you have it. It was that easy. The key thing is, if you ever decide for whatever reason, maybe you're at a certain type of car show and you don't want to have that custom look, if you can easily get into that wire harness, it's as easy as plugging and unplugging. So it's that simple. The thing that I'll say is, you just saw the wires. I'm going to go ahead and tape that up. Obviously, you would want to do that as well, but that pretty much rounds it out. And there you have it. The halo look on both sides. Can't beat it. I love it. All right, and here's what it looks like from the back. Of course, it'll look a lot nicer at night. Of course, I've got my tag light working as well, which is key. Can't thank John at Stinkin Lincoln enough. Hit him up. It's an easy install. I know this longer version of this video was very detailed. Hey, if it helps you, great. But there's also the shorter version for people that may not want to watch the longer version. Thanks again, John. These things are awesome. Stinkin Lincoln. All right, let's try the tail light. All right, this is just with the parking lights on right now. So it's really a dual purpose. You have this option here where you just turn on your parking lights and you've got that effect. But keep in mind, it also acts as a tail light as well. Now, I did take out the LED bulbs and I have the regular bulbs in for now, but you can at least see here what I'm talking about. Okay, and this is going to be with no light on, no turn signal, no parking light. And there you have it. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for consuming the content. You could look back and say, wow, maybe a little too much information, but I wanted to handle all facets of the install, from really the instructions all the way through taking out the taillights. I went a little bit above and beyond on the passenger side. I ended up going back on the driver's side, taping that with electrical tape as well. Just a little extra insurance. However, again, totally not necessary. If you want to buy these LED taillights / rear parking lights from John, hit him up. You can give him a call. You can send him an email. You can hit him up on social media. I think he's pretty responsive, especially even on Facebook. But certainly let him know that ODB, the Lincoln Addict, sent you. John's a great guy. He's been supporting the Lincoln community for a very, very long time. There is going to be a shorter version of this video. So if you find any club mates or anybody that you know that might appreciate this and maybe they want to consume a little less content, share with them the shorter version if that's more their style. Thank you so much. And again, shout out to John at Stinkin Lincoln. Stay on the rise, everyone. Peace.
Welcome to LA where the players play, and we ride on them things like every day.